Pushing Back the Shadows, support and awareness for mental health. Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Pushing Back the Shadows podcast. My name's Alex Davis, I'm the founder of Pushing Back the Shadows and the main author behind the blog. So, we've come to the end of the series that I did about my depression, and I'd encourage you to check that out if you haven't already. It spans about 5 episodes, and it's different aspects that I believe my depression takes. But moving on from that, I said that I was going to talk a little bit about, for want of a better word, but my motto. Something that I try and live by that gives me a better outlook on life. Now, outlooks on life can be very, they cause quite a bit of debate, don't they? Some people will say, take a positive attitude and everything else will be kind of sunshine and daisies. Other people say, well, what's the point in trying to be positive? It never works. And what's the point of life? Because it just sucks. And you get a whole kind of range in between. A lot of people tell me that I'm really good for getting through the struggles that I get through, for coping with this every day. And there are people on Twitter who come across and say, do you know what, you're doing an amazing job. It's really good that you can do this. But how? How do I do it? And that's kind of what I want to tap in a little to today. Tap into a little even, not tap in a little too. I will learn how to speak by the end of the episode, I promise you. But so, it starts off with hoping for the best. Now, hope, it's one of those, it's something that's not very evident, is it? You can't always see that hope especially when you're in the situation. The way I've described it before is it's almost like, and you hear a lot of people say about the light at the end of the tunnel, but it can feel like that light at the end of the tunnel has been kind of snuffed out. One of my favourite quotes that I find is, due to budget cuts, the light at the end of the tunnel has been turned off. And it can feel that way, can't it? Like the light at the end of the tunnel has been extinguished. It's not there. But sometimes, and I use this word very tentatively, sometimes, that light of the tunnel is actually just round the bend. Granted, it may be a ridiculously long tunnel like the Channel Tunnel or something, and the light at the end of the tunnel is actually a little way away. But even so, that light is still there. And as I say, hope is something that causes a lot of debate, because a lot of people say, there is no hope. Some people say, what's the point in holding on to hope when life will just come around and knock you back down? And some people say, the hope is the most important thing that you can have. But so that's the first part of what I want to get across to you guys today. Hope for the best. Because there's nothing wrong with a bit of hope. I mean, after all, what do you have to lose? Hope in itself is something that can get you through. You can hope that things will improve. You can hope that you'll get that new job, or that you'll get that pay rise, that something will go right. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with hoping. In that sense, it is very much the same as having dreams and aspirations. What's wrong with having dreams and aspirations? In fact, here's a challenge for you. If anybody can tell me why you should not have hope, I'd love to hear about it. alex.davis@pushingbacktheshadows.com, or Twitter, which is AlexDavisPBTS. I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear why you think you shouldn't have hope. And I bet you nobody will respond. In fact, I'll even tell you next week whether anybody does respond to that. Because I'm not sure whether anybody will respond. But I genuinely believe that there is nothing wrong with having hope. So hope for the best. It sounds a little bit cliched. Maybe it is a bit cliched, I don't know. But definitely hope for the best. But that's not all there is to it, because I can already hear people saying, well, what if you hope for the best and it falls through? Because so many things do nowadays, don't they? Like getting on the property ladder, getting a job. It is so difficult in today's society that, it's all very well having all that hope, but what happens when it falls through? And that's where the next part of what I want to talk to you comes in. What I want to talk to you about, I'm still learning how to speak apparently, but at the end of the day, it's still morning here, so bear with me. But hoping for the best is all very well, but what do we do if it falls through? How do we deal with that? Because those hopes and those dreams and aspirations are crushed, or can be crushed. How do we cope with it?
You're listening to Pushing Back the Shadows.
So what do we do? If that hope is not enough to sustain us, if that hope is not enough to get us through, or if that hope fails, what then? Because like I say, it's pretty easy sometimes for that hope to fail, and then for our dreams and aspirations to feel crushed. In some ways, that can make us feel worse. If things don't happen the way we'd hoped they would, it can feel worse. So what do I do? Well, here's the secret. As I say, I hope for the best. And I do, genuinely. I always hope for the best. But, on the flip side, I prepare for the worst. Yeah, you heard me right. I hope for the best and I prepare for the worst. Because, well, no, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to tell you yet why I prepare for the worst. But so, I look at things like when I publish the podcast, I hope that I'm going to reach hundreds and thousands of people with encouragement, with inspiration, with answers, even though there aren't necessarily that many answers to give. But at the same time, I kind of prepare for the fact that it'll flop. That I'll only get half a dozen people, maybe a dozen at the most, because nobody really cares, nobody's really that interested, and that's kind of how I go through each and every day that I do this job. I hope that it'll make a difference. I prepare myself for the fact that it won't. And a lot of people who've listened to this have said, well, it's a very negative outlook to have. The glass is half empty instead of half full. It's not good. Why would you think that way? Why would you think that way? And I do tend to get, especially from like friends and family, I get quite a bit of flack for it. But there is a reason why I prepare for the worst. So to give you an example, I know I've already mentioned about the website, but one of the things that I would do is I'd look at some of the different situations in my life. Like I said last week in last week's episode, that I went down to my parents, and it would be, I'd hope that it would be a smooth run, even though I'm going on the M6 and the M5 and they're an absolute nightmare generally. I'd still hope that the journey would be good, that it'd be a smooth run. But I'd prepare myself for an awful run. Going down to my parents, I'd go past Bristol, which, depending on the time of day, is always a nightmare. Always really bad. But then I'd also kind of prepare myself for the start of the M5, because junction 1 and 2 at the moment are all under roadworks and can be absolutely horrible, and so on. So that's kind of where I'd be going with that. But why? Why do I prepare myself for the worst? Why do I take this almost negative outlook on life and make it into almost like a motto or a mantra? Why would I do that? Because it makes no sense, does it? I mean, yes, you've got depression and it tells you, oh, nothing's going to turn out the way you think it is, it's all going to be very bad. But if you're preparing yourself for things, why would you not encourage yourself a bit? Find out just after the break.
You're listening to Pushing Back the Shadows.
Why do I prepare for the worst? In truth, it's because that way there are no surprises. There are no nasty surprises. Think about it this way. When I mentioned the website and I said that I'd hope that it would help people, that it would encourage people or inspire people, but I prepare myself for it to flop. When I said that, let's look at that a little bit deeper. So in that sense, what I'd actually be doing is hoping that it would do exactly what I want it to. But if I prepare for it to fail, everything else is kind of a pleasant surprise, isn't it? If I think, oh, I'm only going to reach like 5 people, and I fully believe that it's only going to reach 5 people, then actually, if it reaches 10, 20, 50, anything above those 5 people is a pleasant surprise. You hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. And anything that comes is a pleasant surprise. Now, I'm not saying for one second that actually that does get you past disappointment, because what actually seems to happen is that you do still get disappointed. Granted, I'm not saying it is a 100% guaranteed cure for getting over disappointment, but it helps. Because, and this is something that therapists tend to say a lot, with getting through depression, getting through anxiety, mental health struggles, it is very much about having that little bit of a mental shift. You change your perspective. You change that perspective. And so instead of thinking, do you know what, I'm going to aim for 100 people, I want to get 100 people. Instead of going down that route, and then only getting 50, or 20, or 10, and thinking, oh my goodness, what a failure, it didn't work, then you're actually looking at it from the other side and go, well, actually, do you know what, I thought I was only going to get this, but I've done well, I've got more than I thought. So instead of setting, and this is something really important because I'm a perfectionist, okay? I don't know whether I've mentioned that before, I think I have, but I'm a perfectionist. And instead of setting your standards ridiculously high and setting yourself up to fail, do the opposite. Set those expectations low, almost to the point where it's so stupidly low that you know you can achieve, and go from there. Because then you achieve it, don't you? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not for 1 minute talking about setting yourself up for very easy victories, because that in itself can also lead to you thinking you can't achieve the bigger stuff. It's about finding a balance. Going with what you believe you can achieve, yeah, great. But also going with a few things that you know you can achieve. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. I'm not for 1 minute saying that you can't climb the mountain. But maybe if you say to yourself, well, I'll only get halfway, then when you reach the top, you've done well. It's a shift in perspective. And really, that is the simplest part of this thing. That it is that shift in perspective. That you can say to yourself, well, I don't think I can do it, but I'm going to give it a go. And that's where the two work together. You hope that you can do it, so you give it a go. But you tell yourself that you can't, so that when you succeed, it's so much better. And that in itself is how I get through doing these podcasts, doing the blog posts, talking to all of you on Twitter or Google Plus or Facebook or wherever I come into contact with you. That in itself is how I get through. Because I hope that you guys will find it beneficial. I hope that it will mean something to you guys. I hope that someone, somewhere, will get something useful from this. But then I tell myself that it won't get very far. Because that way, when I get all of the incredible responses that I do from you guys, I know that I've done something good. I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from, why I would prepare for the worst but hope for the best. As always, if you've got any questions, my inbox is open. I'll include my email address below, alex.davis@pushingbacktheshadows.com. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a message. I'll be happy to talk about it. Now, just at the end of this video, as we always do, we have our patrons who do support our ongoing work, and I just want to give a quick thank you to those patrons. So some of our top patrons include Shirley, Louise, Katie, Luce, Samantha, Cheryl, Yi, Tamara, and Alex. Thank you for all the support that you give us. We really do appreciate it. If you want to support us, then do head over to our Patreon page. The link is in the bottom of the description. It is quick and easy to do so. And you are in complete control. You can choose whether it's a one-off donation, whether it's more of a donation, and whether it's kind of ongoing support. So hopefully you guys will check it out. You do get exclusive rewards as well, including some of the behind the scenes into making this podcast, for example. But that's all from me. I'll catch you next week on episode 32 of the Pushing Back the Shadows podcast. Take care, guys.
You've been listening to Pushing Back the Shadows. To find out more, head over to pushingbacktheshadows.com and hit subscribe to get all of our latest updates straight to your inbox. Alternatively, connect with us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/AlexDavisPBTS, or you can visit us on Twitter @AlexDavisPBTS. Enable Pushing Back the Shadows to continue supporting people in the mental health community, their friends and their family. By pledging just $1 a month, you could help us to continue supporting people with depression, with anxiety, with bipolar and other mental illnesses. You can also unlock exclusive rewards, behind the scenes, sneak previews of upcoming posts and much, much more. So head over to www.patreon.com/AlexDavisPBTS to find out more.